All right, so today I want to make a video about the different kinds of bullets, what they're meant for, what exactly they do. Like I say, the main purpose is the pricing, its strengths and weaknesses, that kind of stuff. So I have 6 different kinds here. They basically cover all the main kinds. There's two that are actually there's some that are pretty similar, but there is differences between all the bullets. So I will get right into it. I basically have it marked out from roughly the cheapest to the most expensive, going left to right. So that's kind of the first thing to point out. But these are all 308, so it is very easy to make the comparison. So that's the first thing I'll point out. But getting right into it, the first one I have here is just a basic 150 grain FMJ from Remington. Again, FMJs they're probably the most common kind of bullet, but mainly in the more, mass-produced rounds, specifically the 223, 556, and the 762 by 39 and 308. Those are basically the calibers that FMJs are very popular in. Now, why are they so popular? Because they're cheap. That's basically the main reason they're produced, or they're so popular, is because they're cheap, they're plentiful. That's why they're so popular. Now, as far as quality goes, generally they're not the highest quality. There is some that are pretty good, but generally they're not the best. Now, there is some of the FMJ boat tails. They're usually a little more accurate, but the average FMJ not going to be super accurate, depending on the gun. I mean, I've got sub MOA groups out of this stuff, and some other FMJ stuff out of the 308 before, but that's shooting it out of a gun that shoots very accurate, that has half minute potential. So the benefits of FMJ: it's going to be cheap, they're going to be plentiful. The downsides, they're not going to be super accurate. They're usually fairly reliable depending upon the kind. I mean, especially if they're brass case. And the last thing to point out with the FMJ, what exactly is an FMJ? It stands for full metal jacket. So basically, again, there is no hollow point, there is no soft point. It is simply, as the name implies, full metal jacket. Now, there is lead core FMJs, which is most FMJs, and then there's steel core. There's ones with penetrators on it, like the green tip and black tip, I believe it is, for 308 and 30-06. So there's other kinds of FMJs, but most of them will be the lead core FMJs. And again, those are the bullets that the military uses, which is, again, the one thing that I didn't bring up, which is part of the reason why they're so popular. Not all the time, but almost all the time, that's what the military uses. Now, again, they have different forms of it. Again, they got the green tip, they got standard FMJ, they got this kind of FMJ. There's tons of different kinds. That's a whole nother video in and of itself, but that is the FMJ. Now, getting into the next kind, this is a 180 grain power point from Winchester. This is a pretty popular kind of ammo. Now, again, these are some pretty cheap bullets. As far as hunting bullets go, these are about as cheap as you can go. For the simple reason that they are not a super high quality bullet. Will they still work? Absolutely. But are they going to be super high quality? No. Are they going to be super accurate? No. But will they get the job done for the average person? Definitely. But what is a bullet like this going to do? It's not going to retain its weight very well. So what I mean by that is, you shoot an animal, it's not going to retain its weight very well. It's going to break up into a lot of pieces, most likely. The jacket won't mushroom very well. And I'll get into that in some of these other bullets. I'll describe exactly what happens. So this kind of stuff, like I say, as far as hunting ammo goes, it's going to be on the cheaper side. It is still relatively accurate depending on the gun, depending on the shooter. You can probably get 1-inch groups out of these, or minute of angle groups, whatever you want to call it. Again, it will depend on the gun, will depend on the person, but that is soft point. This is technically this is a soft point again. So next bullet here, this is the Fusion 150 grain. Actually, they make 165s and 180s as well. At least in 308. I think they do in all the other 30 cal rounds. But what is the difference between this bullet, which is technically a soft point as well, and the Winchester? Well, I mean, there's a few different things. Number one, the Fusion has a boat tail, which is going to make it more accurate. The jacket is also going to be a little higher quality, which means these the fusions are going to retain their weight a little bit better, which is going to make them better for hunting the more big game stuff. I mean, if you're using a 308, pretty much any kind of ammo, as long as it's, you know, it expands, is going to work when it comes to hunting deer, basically. I mean, that's probably the most common thing hunted with center fire rifles. Pretty much anything, like I say, in a 308 is going to work for deer. But why would a bullet like this be better? Number one, again, it's going to be more accurate. I've actually shot incredibly accurate groups with the 180 grain fusions, and again, I've used pretty much all this ammo out of more than one gun, so I do have a pretty good idea of what's the most accurate, what's the best stuff. This stuff retains its weight pretty good. It's not incredibly good like some of the other stuff I'll talk about, but it does retain its weight pretty good. This is something that you definitely could use on the big game, you know, the moose, the elk, that kind of stuff if you wanted. But again, it's still probably a better for deer. And yeah, like I say, this stuff also, especially the 180 grain stuff, I've shot very accurate groups out of. So as far as dollar for dollar, this is probably some of the best hunting ammo you can get, again, in my opinion. The next stuff here is the Superformance 150 grain SST. Again, I think they make these in multiple weights as well. What is the difference between this bullet and some of these other ones here, at least the other two? This is, again, it's an SST. It's basically a ballistic tip. Now, again, this ammo is not designed to expand super well. Again, it will expand relatively well, as you can see an example of the bullet here, but it's not going to hold its weight super well. What is the benefit of a bullet like this? Why is it generally more expensive? Is because, number one, it's a little bit hotter. So again, some guns aren't going to be able to handle this ammo. Most of them will, but some guns aren't going to be able to handle it. But what is the benefit? It's going to be flatter shooting. As you can see here, if you can focus that, you know, it's only dropping 40 inches at 500 yards. For a 308, that's incredibly flat shooting. 308, you're usually looking at about 50 inches at 500 yards. So that's very flat shooting. In some of the more flatter shooting calibers, you're going to get an even more flat trajectory. So that is the benefit of a bullet like this. If I had to pick a bullet for deer hunting, you know, out of a 308, this would probably be the one. Why? Because it's incredibly flat shooting. It's going to dump its energy very fast. And when you're hunting deer with a caliber that's, you know, 308 is probably slight overkill for deer. You want a bullet that's going to dump all of its energy within the deer. You don't want a bullet, I mean, technically, like I say, any kind of bullet is going to work as long as it expands. You don't want to use FMJs, but as long as it's going to expand, any bullet's going to work to kill a deer out of a 308, out of a 270, out of anything that's that powerful or more powerful. You're going to have no problem killing a deer as long as you hit it in a good spot. But again, why I would use this ammo is because it's very flat shooting, and you are going to get that. I mean, basically the flat shooting aspect. Again, because if you come across a deer 300, 400, 500 yards, you want a more flat shooting round because it's going to be more forgiving if you misestimate how far away it is. So that's kind of the, you know, this bullet. And now again, the idea that ballistic tips aren't as good a bullets at retaining their energy is kind of a myth. That's something I've heard talked about before. It is true to an extent, but it's not always true. Now, getting into this bullet here, this is a Federal 165 grain trophy bonded tip. These are also some very good quality bullets. Now again, aside from the fact that these are a different color, these bullets they appear almost exactly the same. They're both ballistic tips. Now, what is the difference between the Federal and the Hornady? The Federal here is going to it's a bullet that's going to retain its weight very well. What is the benefit of that? If you're hunting big game like elk, moose, bear, stuff like that, you want a bullet like this. Why do you want a bullet like this? Because those animals have a lot thicker bone, thicker hide, and it's going to take more power, more power basically, and more a bullet that holds its weight better will do a better job killing a bigger animal, basically, in a nutshell. Now, if you look on the back of this ammo, they do post basically what the bullet looks like here, and in my experiences, I have recovered some of these, some similar as well, and they do look like that, and that is exactly what you want a bullet to look like. when you're hunting big game, like I say, the moose, the elk, stuff like that. So that is that. Now, again, bullets that are comparable to this kind of stuff. I know there's tons of FMJs, so I'm not going to bring that up. But I know Federal, they have their power shock, I think it is comparable to this stuff. Hornady Superformance is pretty much the only kind of bullet. What's the difference between Superformance and an average bullet? They basically load these a little bit hotter. Again, a normal 308, 150 grain bullet, you're going to have about 2,800 feet per second. These have 3,000. Again, that is just a listed measurement. It will vary gun to gun. But again, these are loaded a little bit hotter. So that is the difference between these. So bullets that are comparable to these, you got the Barnes. I think Nosler makes one comparable to this. The Barnes bullets are very good in my experience. They are very expensive, but they are very good. These kind of bullets, like I say, are big game. You want to use these when you're hunting big game, especially with like a 308 or a 270, a gun that can still easily take a moose if you place your shot well. But you don't want to use a bullet that's going to basically shred on impact and not even reach the vitals or something like that. So again, these bullets are all, more your deer, even elk. You could use all of these three on if you really wanted, but the really big game stuff, you want to use a bullet that's going to hold its weight. The last bullet here is a Federal 185 grain open tip match. What is the difference between this bullet and all these other ones? This is a match bullet. Now, what is a match bullet? Basically, match bullets are going to be a lot longer than another bullet. I mean, if you take a comparison here, you can see there's a pretty comparable difference, or pretty noticeable difference there. Why are they like that? Because match bullets are specifically designed to fly as aerodynamically as possible. Match bullets, they don't care about retaining weight, about the ability to kill a deer or a moose or whatever, because they're specifically designed to shoot as accurately as possible, especially at long range. So a match bullet you don't want to hunt with. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could, but I would strongly recommend not doing it, because when they hit hide, bone, stuff like that, they're going to shred into like hundreds of pieces probably. And why do you not want that? Because when you're shooting something, you want the bullet to stay at least somewhat intact. The more intact, the better usually. And that's why you don't want to use match ammo. I mean, the other reason is match ammo is going to be very expensive, especially for the good quality stuff. So it's another reason why nobody uses match ammo for hunting. And again, like I say, the differentiation being the bullets are very long. And again, like I say, the reason for that is match bullets, they want to have the highest ballistic coefficient as possible. Basically, when you're looking for bullets to shoot long range and to shoot targets, especially at long range, they want the highest ballistic coefficient possible. What is ballistic coefficient in a nutshell? Basically, how aerodynamically will a bullet fly through the air? The higher the number, the more efficiently it's going to fly through the air. Basically, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So anyway, and the other thing too to point out is that there's many different brands of match ammo. Hornady makes theirs, Nosler makes theirs. Again, this is Federal. I don't think Winchester has a major brand of match ammo out there, but I know Barnes has some. Pretty much every major brand has them. But basically, that is, in a nutshell, all the different kinds of bullets and the differences between them. So anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.